What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Wheel Wednesday. So if you don't know, this is the series of videos where basically every Wednesday I spin a wheel filled with all the various retro formats, and I play that format, and it could be a format that I've played before, could be a format that I've never played before, but either way, it should be a lot of fun. Now, there are some caveats here. I don't have Goat, Edison, Tengu, Hat, etc. Because those formats are popular enough to get some other coverage on YouTube. So I figure I'd cover the formats that never really get a spotlight. So those won't be on the list. Also, not on the list are the Link era formats, mainly because that is when the game started to become a lot more combo-oriented, and you really need to know the decks a lot better than just like picking up a deck list and trying it out. So at this point in time, we don't have those on the list right now, but later on, as I start approaching those eras, I will definitely add them back on. But those are the caveats. Let's just spin the wheel, see what we get here. I will say if I spin Perfect Circle, I also will respin that because that's the format that I'm currently on. But we got Charleston. Okay, an Arc V format. I'm excited to try this one out. Going over to Format Library here and just seeing Charleston down here. It's over here. Charleston, it seems like it's a format that's dominated by BA, Qliphort, Volcanics, Tellarknight, Shaddoll, and Artifact Shaddoll. I'm just going to pick up the latest winning list here from the Charleston Cook-Off 2 that was held on Format Library. This was only an 8-player event, but, you know, it's still fine as a good starting point, I think. Looks like Qliphort won, so I'll probably play this list here. So I'm going to load this up into Dueling Book and just go over a brief deck breakdown before diving into some games. So I haven't really played many Qli decks before, but I am relatively familiar with how they work. For those who don't know, they're a Pendulum archetype that doesn't often like use the Pendulum swing mechanic like too much. They do it a fair bit, but they're not like the Pendulum decks that we get later on in the game's history. What they do is they generally try and take it slow a bit and use Pendulum summons to set up like powerful tribute summons, like for Qliphort Towers, which is their boss monster that gave name to an entire archetype of boss monsters. Not archetype of boss monsters, but a type of no, I guess it is technically an archetype in the literary term of it, I guess. Anyways, it's a very powerful boss monster. Requires 3 Qli tributes to normal summoner set this card and can't be special summoned. And if it's normal summoner set, it's unaffected by spell trap effects and by activated effects from any monster whose original level or rank is lower than this card's current level. And this thing, it'll level 10. So that's most things. All special summon monsters lose 500 attack and defense. And then once per turn, you can make your opponent send 1 monster from their hand or their side of the field to the graveyard, their choice. So this thing is absolutely busted if you get it out. But even if you don't get it out, this deck is still good at making some plays. Let's go over the Qli Pendulum monsters first. So Scout is the big one that you need to know about. This is a normal monster in terms of its monster effect, which is just some lore thing, which is very fun. But its Pendulum effect is you cannot special summon monsters except for Qli monsters. That is why the deck is not mainly used to like special summon spam, because you can only summon out Qli monsters, which, you know, the Qli monsters generally want to be tribute summoned anyways. But it says this effect cannot be negated, and then once per turn, you can pay 800 life points and add 1 Qli card from your deck to your hand, except for Qliphort Scout. So the main thing you do with this thing is you activate it, you scale it up, and then you search out another Qli card to then set up your other scale, which is very good. Another good scale is Monolith. This is a scale 1, whereas Scout is a scale 9, so this can basically summon out anything that you might want to. And this card also says you cannot special summon monsters except for Qli monsters. It says, once per turn during the end phase, if you tribute summon this turn, you can draw a number of cards equal to the number of Qli monsters you tribute for tribute summons this turn. So as I mentioned, this deck mainly tries to tribute summon out their monsters after setting up some special summons with the Pendulum scale. So not your typical Pen deck here. But the tribute summons they can do are very powerful. You get the draws off Monolith, and they often have other effects as well. Qliphort Carrier is a scale 1, which is also pretty good. When it's scaled up, all Qli monsters you control gain 300 attack and defend, or just attack, I guess. And it says you can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card normal summon without tributing, or is special summon, its level becomes 4 and its original attack becomes 1800. And it says if this card is normal summoned or set, it is unaffected by activated effects from any monster whose original rank or level is lower than this card's current level. And then if this card is tributed, you can target 1 monster on the field returned in the hand. So this gets an effect upon being tributed, so it's a good one to bring out and then tribute for something like one of your other Qlis. They get to bounce there. We've also got Qliphort Disc here. This also has the Pendulum scale effect that says all Qli monsters you control gain 300 attack. And then its monster effect is you can normal summon this card without tributing. If the card normal summon without tributing, you know, same thing as Carrier. Its attack becomes 1800, its level becomes 4. And then if this card normal summoner set is unaffected by activated effects from any monster's level rank is lower than the card's current level. And then when this card should be summoned by tributing a Qli monster, you can special summon 2 Qli monsters from your deck, but destroy them during the end phase. So that is pretty good. You can, get out more Qlis, get them scaled up in your extra deck, and then bring them out on the following turn. So that's not terrible, and also can be used to just push and get very aggressive there. We've also got Qliphorts Cephalopod. This actually has the Pendulum scale effect. This is all monsters your opponent controls lose 300 attack instead of your monster gain 300 attack. But just like the others, it can be normal summon tributing, or special summon becomes 1800 level 4. And then if its normal summoner set is unaffected by activated effects from any monster's original level or rank lower than the current card level, etc., etc. And then when this card tributes summoned by tributing a Qli monster, you can activate this effect if your opponent has more monsters in the graveyard than you do. You gain life points equal to the difference times 300, and if you do, inflict the same amount of damage to your opponent. Doesn't come up too often, but it is a nice thing that can allow you to burn your opponent and potentially gain your way out of some bad situations. Helix is another one that causes your opponent's monster to lose 300. All the scale 9s, I think, that are not the Monolith and the Scout cause your opponent to lose, and then the other ones cause them to gain. But this one, the same normal summon thing and the same unaffected thing, but if this card is tributed, you can target one spell trap on the field and destroy it. So while Carrier, it targets monsters, the Helix targets spell traps. So you generally want to be tributing the Carriers or the Helixes here. Stealth is another scale 1, and it says all Qliph monsters you control gain 300 attack. It can be normal summon just like the other ones, and it's unaffected by monsters with lower ranks or levels than it, like the other ones. And then when this card tribute summoned by tributing a Qli monster, you can target one card on the field, return to the hand, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this effect activation. So that is a very, very good tribute monster as well. But moving on, well, actually, we got one more monster to talk about, I guess. Performer Pal Tramplings here. You may wonder why this is in the deck. But it actually has a pretty useful effect here. It says when you Pendulum summon a monster or monsters, you can target one card in either player's Pendulum zone, return to the hand. And that can be very, very useful because it can actually bounce back your Qliphort Scout, and then you can actually use its effect again. So you can rescale it and use it again. And that's pretty, pretty good. Since this is a scale 4, it still works with Scout because that's a scale 9. You can still summon out your other Qli monsters pretty easily here. And so this card actually does put in work in this deck, even though it is not a Qli. And then when it's normal summon, you can target one card in either played Pendulum Zone, return in hand. So you can also get it out that way if you want to. But yeah, there's a pretty good monster lineup. The deck mainly plays with this monster lineup, but it does have some other powerful spells. It's got 3 MSTs and 3 Night Beams to deal with the opponent's back row, along with Storm as well, which is a fun sort of back row destroyer too, which is kind of neat. Summoner's Art searches out a fair number of good things in the deck, namely the Scouts and the Monoliths. That's very, very powerful to search out off this thing. We got Upstart Goblin to dig deeper in the deck. We got Sacrifice here, which is an equipped card that can only be equipped to a Qli monster and then gains 300 attack and cannot be destroyed by battle. The equipped monster can be treated as 2 tributes for the tribute summon of a Qli monster, and then if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Qli monster from your deck to your hand. So a very powerful equipped card there. For the side deck, now I'm not the most familiar with this format here, so I won't know the exact purpose for all the cards here, but Maxi makes sense, just a card to draw special summoning. Oh, I should mention the Snatch Shield is in this deck as well. I mean, that's a crack card. Can enable OTKs, can enable your tributes. It's very, very broken. But Maxi's here to, side in against special summoning based decks. Same with Vanity's Fiend. Majesty's Fiend can also do that sort of thing, except it negates monster effects, which is very nice. Glow Bulb, if you want to go into synchro plays like Nap Beast, it's very good. Of course, you can't really go into that if you've got your Cleaves scaled up here. But, if you're playing with the Glow Bulb, you're probably going to avoid that situation anyways. But we also got Metaphys Horus. Not really sure why this is here in the extra deck. I mean, honestly, a lot of the extra decks kind of just here to be here, I think, because, like, a lot of it you're not going into, given that you can't special summon, except for Qli monsters when, Scout or Monolith or any of your other monsters are scaled here. But I think it's just for weird edge cases where that actually does come up. Or after you go for a Storm play, because you can destroy your own spell traps and then you can potentially overlay into things. So that is another good use of Storm there. But we got Laser Clip as well. This is a field spell for the deck. And since during your main phase, you can normal summon one Qli monster in addition to your normal summon set. And then normal summons of Qli monsters cannot be negated. So I guess if you're worried that your opponent will bring in negation against your Qli stuff, you can bring this in. Although it's definitely an interesting card here. Monarch Storeforth is basically Soul Exchange on steroids. So that's why that's there. And then Typhoon is also good at just popping spell traps as well. And it can actually be activated from the hand if your opponent controls 2 or more spell traps. So there's a pretty good lineup of cards here. I haven't really played this deck before, but, we'll be diving into a live game that I play with this deck, and we'll see if I'm able to sort of navigate the ins and outs of this strategy. I couldn't get a live recording of the gameplay that I did with the deck, but I did play a game against Ratos, so I'm just going to go over the replay and talk about what we did, what I did wrong, and what I could have done better with the deck, because it definitely is a learning experience every time you pick up a new deck in these formats, so there's always stuff that you can do. But anyways, we are going first, and unfortunately, we don't really have a good way to get into the Qliphorts Scout, which is generally what you want to be doing to start off your plays. Now, you could potentially get really passive here, just setting something like MST to stop my opponent's zones and stuff. But what I decided to do instead is I just decide to try and develop my board a little bit. I summon out a carrier here. Carrier is the one that if you tribute it, it bounces back a monster on the field to hand. And then I equip it with a sacrifice. Now, I could actually get into Scout here if I go MST on the sacrifice and then search out Scout to hand, activate Scout, search out something else, potentially pen summon out something. But with my normal summon gone, it becomes a bit worse to do that. So I'm not really the biggest fan of going for that play because I feel like it's very aggressive. So I figure I'll set up this. My opponent has to deal with it somehow. And I don't think they'll be able to kill me through this because, they have to destroy sacrifice through some other means because the carrier cannot be destroyed by battle here. So I feel like we're in a good spot overall if I just leave it at this, and I'm just going to pass back to my opponent here. They're going to go for an Upstart Goblin, and we're going to gain 1,000 life points from that. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to activate a Summoner's Art to search out a Scout of their own, so it seems like this is the mirror match here. They're going to activate the Scout and pay 800, search out a Sacrifice here. Sacrifice is a really powerful card. Go for another Summoner Art for a Qliphort Monolith here, and that's sort of the other scale that you want generally. They're going to scale up that Monolith and bring out a Carrier here off that. Go for a Sacrifice on the carrier, so that way it counts as 2 cards here, and summon out a Qliphort Disc. Now, carrier, just like my carrier, does get to bounce something back, so they will bounce back the carrier of our own. This does trigger the sacrifice, so I can actually search something out. This is a bit of a thinker. They do have the option to get me down very low in life with this Qliphort Disc, special summoning out 2 other Qlis here. There is sort of the awkward thing where, if I search out Scout, it only gets 1 search here based on the value of the damage on board. But I will still search out the Scout because I think it's the best thing that I can get. It's also a scale 9, which pairs with the carrier in hand. So, I feel like I want the scale 9 in hand as opposed to a scale 1, but I don't know. Maybe I should just search out another sacrifice or something and played it a bit safer, but they're going to attack in for a ton of damage here, getting in for 48 plus 28 here, dropping us down all the way to 1400. So we still do have enough for 1 search. They're going to set 1. The monolith will be destroyed, and then they also get to trigger the monolith and draw 1 card there. We're going to draw into Tramplings here, which actually turned on a lot of combo potential for us. Not as much as if we had more life points to pay, because then we could go for Scout multiple times. But I think no matter what we do here, we start with the Night Beam on their Night Beam, just popping that. We go for a Qliphort Scout here, paying 800 to search out something else. We could just grab a Qliphort Disc, because I figured we can do sort of the same play that we did last time. So we can go for the Tramplings at the other scale here and pen summon out a Carrier and a Helix. Now, as a note, I misread Tramplings at first. I thought the Pendulum effect was that you could just, during your turn at some point, target 1 card in either player's Pendulum Summon and return to the hand, but it has to be on Pendulum Summon. So what I should have done here is bounce back the Scout on the summon of this card here, just so that way I can potentially get more flexibility later. For instance, I can actually overlay into things when, I bring out Qliphort Disc and bring out 2 monoliths. I can overlay those into, rank 5 from my extra deck, or I could just bring out 2 level 4s here and overlay into a rank 4. There's a bunch of different options there, but either way here, I tribute those 2 for a disc, and I trigger the carrier to bounce back the disc, or at least I attempt to, because I'm like, okay, this is lethal. And because it's lethal, I didn't trigger the Helix because I was like, okay, I just bounce back the disc and then we're golden. But I forgot that the disc is unaffected by the carrier since the carriers have a lower level than the disc. So that was a major misplay on my part, and it does come back to bite us here. And I'm just going to crash into their disc here and put those onto the face-up extra deck, then attack in for 48 here. So if I had gone for the Helix here, I could have actually, destroyed one of their pen summons here. So I could have destroyed the Scout, for instance. And then I'd MST to stop if they like scaled something else. Actually, I could have potentially, yeah, no, I probably still destroy the scout because I don't want them to get the search. Yes, I could get them to pay an additional 800 and then activate MST to destroy the scout there, but I feel like that's just a little bit too risky and greedy. So yeah, what I should have done is I should have Helix popped one of these things, and then I'd set MST for next turn. If they scale up something else, I MST again and try and pop another thing there. We know that they've got a, well, actually, they don't have a disc in hand, but I think we know that they searched carrier, or maybe they didn't, but either way, I would try and pop these scales and make it as hard as possible for them to actually scale things up. And we'll also just see, you know, how that would have turned out. But my opponent is very kind. They let me sort of retroactively return the scout to hand because, you know, it doesn't really change anything about the board state here, so it would have ultimately turned out the same. And I go for a Durandal, figuring like, well, I can negate like a spell trap or something like that. If they do have something here, I go for MST on the scout preemptively, and then I just pass back to them, hoping that they don't have another scale 9 there. But unfortunately, as you can see here, they do have a scout in hand, so they can just go for the scout here, and yeah, that'll just be the end of the game. So if I had gone for Helix, potentially popping the Monolith as well, you know, then maybe things would have turned out a little bit differently, but I don't really think it would have, because what would have happened here is I probably would have popped the Monolith either way, set the MST for on their turn, and then they would have gone Night Beam, popped the MST, and they would have been perfectly fine here to bring out a bunch of stuff. So I think I still would have lost this one either way, although I guess I could have gone Durandal, because then I could have actually chained MST to that activation, maybe? I don't quite know. Actually, no, wait, this can't be responded to just the targeted card. So I actually don't know how that interaction would work. But either way here, I was kind of cooked. They did have so much there. And yeah, that's just going to be way over lethal. So that's going to be the end of the game. Now going second, or going to game 2, that is. I am going to go first here. This might be a mistake. Maybe you want to go second in this mirror. But I do side in some things. So, for instance, I take out the Night Beams because, you know, now that I know that my opponent is on Qliph as well, that deck didn't really play back row. So, I don't really need the Night Beams here. So, I side those out. I think I bring in some Vanities because I feel like Vanity's Fiend is very good in this mirror match. So, I feel like that's good. I bring in those. I think I might bring in some Typhoons as well. I think Typhoon's pretty good here, but either way, I'm going to go for the scout here because we did open it this time, so we got a pretty good play setup. We can go for a Monolith here, search off the scout. Then we can go for Trample Links, pen summon out the Monolith, get the scout back in hand there, activate the scout again, and use its effect again because it's not a hard one per turn. We search out a disc here, and now we can go for Sacrifice on the Monolith, count it as 2 tributes, go for the disc here, and then get some searches. I think what I should have done here is I should have gone for Helix instead of Monolith off the scout, because if I tributed the Helix, then I would be able to pop my own scout, and then, you know, get some things going that way, because then I could search out a scout with the Sacrifice, and I could, you know, get out 2 Monoliths here, and, you know, overlay them into a rank 5, and then do things with that. But, you know, minor misplay here. I think it's still a pretty good turn overall. But I do just have to get a bit awkward here and just MST my own scout. So I would have preferred just not to use the MST, which is why I sort of searched out the Helix instead of the Monolith. But you live and learn, and I'm just going to overlay those into a Durandal. Now, as another note, there's no Monoliths left in the deck, which makes it kind of awkward to scale up Monolith at a later point. And Monoliths, getting that scaled is very good because it gets you more draws. So a bit of an unfortunate play for us, but we can go for another scout and search out another Sacrifice, get that online, and equip that to our disc there to just, you know, buff it up a bit more, make it harder to deal with for our opponent. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to set 1. And go for a carrier there. Okay, carrier is fine. They're going to set 2, set 3. Pass back to us. Okay, we are perfectly fine with this. This seems like a perfectly good board to have. They're going to MST our Tramplings, which I think makes a lot of sense here. But we're actually in a really good spot here because what we can do is we can actually summon out this Qliphort Towers with the Snatch Steal on the carrier. So that's pretty nice. We're going to go for the Scout here, and they're going to think about this, and they're ultimately going to go for another MST on the Scout to prevent us from getting the search. That makes sense. But now that last back row can be Durandal to pop the Sacrifice potentially if it's something good there. But we're going to go for a Snatch Steal here. They do a Spell Shattering Arrow, which will deal with our Sacrifice and our Snatch Steal, but they probably don't want to deal with the Sacrifice. This is kind of a last resort thing for them. We don't need to Durandal and just force this to pop only the Snatch Steal, because with that Sacrifice, we can actually search out another Scout, and then we can use that Scout to search out another Scale, and then we can bring out a ton of stuff. So that will be the end of the game there. So yeah, very, very good game 2 there. So I feel like I've kind of gotten the hang of the deck a little bit here and the crazy plays it can make, because this deck can really pop off if it's allowed to here. But our opponent is going to make us go first in game 3, which is very interesting here. I cited out the vanities and stuff like that because I thought I was going second. That's why I've got these Stormforths in here as well. So it's a bit less good for me here, but I can still make some plays happen here. I'm going to go for a Scout, searching out a Sacrifice. And then I'm going to go for a Tramplings here. I'm going to use the Tramplings to pend 2, bring out that Monolith and that Helix there. I'm going to Tramplings back the Scout to hand. And then I'm going to scale up the Scout, pay 8, and search out 8 towers here because I'm doing a very greedy play. This is not what I should be doing on this turn. I should be setting up a board more like the one I had last game, in my opinion. But I saw the towers here, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to get that towers online here. But this does hard lose to Monarch Stormforth, so I should not be doing this. But, you know, I got baited by the towers there. But anyways, I'm going to use the Helix to then pop the links, so that way I can actually scale up again. But I do make a bit of a misplay here, or potentially a misplay. We don't actually know. You know, and that's something that, let me know down in the comments if you do know this ruling. But I searched out a Monolith and then I realized, oh wait, does Towers' summon count as a tribute summon? Because it says it requires 3 tributes to be normal summoned or set. So I don't actually know if that's a tribute summon. Let me know in the comments below if this is a tribute summon or not, and if I will get draws off Monolith or not if I scale that up. But I asked my opponent, you know, just quickly, and I couldn't find any rulings that specify one way or another. They said that they think it does work, you know, scaling up the Monolith here. So I will scale up the Monolith and try and draw 2. But even with this draws, there were potentially better things I could have searched out here. Like, for instance, I could have potentially popped the Scout, searched out another Scout, and done some more searching there. But I think drawing 2 is also fine. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But anyways, they're going to think a bit about this because they do not have the Monarch Stormforth, thank goodness here. They're going to search out a Scout with that Summoner's Art, go for Upstart Goblin, drawing, going for another Upstart Goblin, drawing again, going for another Upstart Goblin, drawing again. And I'm feeling pretty good about this because it's kind of hard to OTK me through all this life points that they gave me there, even if they are able to clear the towers. They're going to scale up a Scout, and they actually realize that they mess up here a little bit, so I do let them take back this sequencing of plays. So, you know, I figure this is more of a game to let me learn, and so it's perfectly fine just, you know, letting them do what they need to do. They're going to go for the Glow Bulb first before going for the Scout, which I do think makes some sense because, you know, you want to know based on what's in your graveyard versus what's not, just what you should search out with the Scout. So I think that's fine to do. And they're going to tribute that Glow Bulb for a carrier. They're going to scale up another carrier there, which will give their monster 300 attack. So it's at 2,700 now, and then they equip with Sacrifice to be at 3,000. So this actually will be able to crash with the Qliphort towers. This has not been special summoned, so it will not lose 500 attack points there. And it will not be destroyed by battle because the Sacrifice will keep it alive. So and a pretty good play on their part. They're then going to set 2, pass back to us. They're going to MST our Monolith in standby phase. I'm just going to attempt to go for the Scout here, try and get a search. I figure they probably have removal for that, and they do indeed with that MST. And now I've got a couple different options here. I could go for the Typhoon from hand here to pop something right away. The awkward thing with that is that I do want to ultimately Monarch Stormforth something out here. And if I do that on the carrier, well, maybe I should just go... Actually, I think maybe what I should do is I should just go like Monarch Stormforth, tribute over the carry for the disc, bring out 2 Monoliths, scale those up into something, go for Summoner's Art for a Scout, Typhoon before, you know, going for the Scout plays and stuff like that. This is deprive them of a thing on field, and then going for a ton of plays like that. But I think it's fine doing it the way that I do it here. It's just a bit worse in my opinion. So I go for the Scout right away. I go for the Scout there. Pay the 8, search out a Monolith here because I want to get a big special summon in here. But with Monarch Stormforth, I can't actually special summon from the extra deck the turn I use it. So what I should have done instead, I should have gone Monarch Stormforth to, you know, summon out Disc because the Sacrifice, I believe, will count for, you know, an opponent's tribute as well. So I do think that, like, this will work, although I don't quite know. So maybe it's better to just sort of play this way. But I do go for, instead of going for the disc, I go for the Monolith over that carrier there. To clear that, they do get a search off the Sacrifice, and they will search out a disc there. And then I can set Typhoon to pop the Scout on their turn. So, but this does play a bit riskily into if they draw into another Scout or a way to get into Scout, so it's a bit awkward there. And you might be wondering why I went for Monolith as opposed to something else, and the reason why I went for Monolith is because if they wanted to use the carrier to bounce back the Monolith to hand, I'm perfectly fine scaling up that Monolith and then getting a draw in the end phase there. So that's why I did it this way. It's kind of awkward, kind of weird, but I do like the line of play ultimately. But as I mentioned, I probably should have done the other line of play instead. But anyways, we're going to standby phase here, and I do just, shotgun the Typhoon. Sure, I could get greedy, wait for them to pay 8 on the Scout to get a search here, but I feel like it's just better to go for the Typhoon now, because if they pen summon first, then I'm in a bad spot if I don't Typhoon this right away. So I just got to hope that they don't have another 9 scale or another Scout. I guess Scout's a 9 scale, but I know about the Disc in Hand, which is a scale 1, so I don't really have to worry about that. And they can't pen summon here. I think they are a bit cooked, because I do have this Disc in Hand to scale up with the Scout, and yeah, I also have the Scout to search out something else, so yeah, that's going to be the end of the game. Seems like the last card in hand was another Monolith, which is another scale 1, so we were able to win this one by the skin of our teeth there. I think I made some very greedy plays in this final game here, and I definitely messed up in game 1, but game 2 was pretty good, I think, on my part. So I feel like by the end of this match, I got a good idea of how to play the deck, which is, always a fun feeling, and always a great feeling when you're trying a new format to actually figure out how to play. Although, again, as I mentioned, even though I feel like I have a better idea how to play this deck, I definitely made some mistakes here, right? Like, I should not have gone for towers, even though it worked out for us here, because, if they drew into that Monarch Stormforth that they had in graveyard, then things could have been pretty bad for us, because I'm pretty sure that Monarch Stormforth is a way to get over towers, because it's not affecting the towers itself, really. It's just affecting how you contribute summon, so weird Yu-Gi-Oh rulings for you out there. But I hope you enjoyed this video as always. Let me know what you think about it down in the comments below. Don't worry, we'll be back to Perfect Circle content very, very soon. But I do like doing these Wheel Wednesdays, just show off other time periods from Yu-Gi-Oh's history that I won't get to for a while. So I'm looking forward to whenever I do get to Charleston format, and I hope that you enjoyed this video as always. As always, big shout out to my patrons, Rinsman, Porkchop Coon, Brent Knocker, Tyler Compton, GeoMyFS, Dumptruck, Scout Zero, and Damon Hess. It means a lot that you all support me. It's what encourages me to make more videos like this one in the future. Join the YGO from Zero Discord server, linked in the description down below, if you want to play games in this or in any other format that I feature on the channel. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.